Welcome to our channel, and today another story, another truth that cannot be ignored.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't be in here during this meeting. The words hung in the air like a slap. Maya Johnson stood frozen in the doorway of the glass conference room, her cleaning cart beside her, watching as 12 executives in $1,000 suits turned to stare at her. The silence was deafening. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya had just overheard something that could save their company from losing the biggest deal in its history. A $10 million contract was about to slip through their fingers, and the woman they saw as just the janitor was the only person who could stop it. Before we continue, please support our new channel and hit the subscribe button. We publish new stories daily. Don't let them go unheard. So, let me take you back to where this all began, because Maya's story isn't just about one moment of triumph. It's about a woman who spent years being invisible, overlooked, and underestimated, until the day she proved that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one nobody sees coming. 3 months earlier, Maya had started working the night shift at Pinnacle Solutions, one of the city's most prestigious consulting firms. Every evening at 6 p.m., she'd push her cart through those gleaming hallways, emptying trash cans and wiping down desks while the corporate world buzzed around her like she wasn't even there. And honestly, that's exactly how she felt most days. Invisible. Maya was 42 years old, a single mother of 2 teenagers, and she'd been cleaning offices for nearly 15 years. It wasn't the life she'd dreamed of when she was younger, but dreams don't pay the bills. Her kids needed food, clothes, and a roof over their heads. So every night, she put on her uniform, grabbed her supplies, and became part of the background of other people's success stories. But Maya had a secret that none of those executives knew about. Before life threw her a series of curveballs, a divorce, a sick mother, mounting medical bills, she'd been just 3 credits away from finishing her business degree. She understood corporate strategy, financial projections, and market analysis better than most people gave her credit for. The knowledge was still there, locked away in her mind like a treasure chest she'd never had the chance to open. Working at Pinnacle Solutions was different from her other cleaning jobs, though. This wasn't just any company. They handled multi-million-dollar deals for Fortune 500 clients. As Maya moved through their offices each night, she couldn't help but absorb the conversations, the presentations left on whiteboards, the urgent phone calls that echoed through the halls. She learned that Pinnacle was in the middle of the most important pitch of their company's history. Meridian Industries, a massive manufacturing conglomerate, was looking for a consulting firm to help them expand into international markets. The contract was worth $10 million over 3 years, enough money to secure Pinnacle's future and fund their expansion plans. Maya watched the team prepare for weeks. She saw the late nights, the stress, the mountains of coffee cups and takeout containers that told the story of their dedication. The lead consultant, James Morrison, was a sharp guy in his 30s who'd been with the company for 8 years. His team respected him, and Maya could see why. He was thorough, intelligent, and genuinely cared about delivering results for their clients. But as Maya cleaned around their workspace night after night, she started noticing things. Small details that the team seemed to be missing in their rush to put together the perfect presentation. She'd see financial projections on whiteboards that didn't quite add up, market research that seemed to overlook crucial demographic shifts, competitive analysis that missed some key players in the international space. At first, Maya told herself it wasn't her place to say anything. Who was she to question the work of Harvard MBAs and seasoned consultants? She was just there to empty the trash and vacuum the floors. But the business student in her, the part of herself she'd buried under years of survival mode, kept whispering that something was wrong with their approach. The night before the big presentation, Maya was cleaning the conference room when she overheard James on a phone call with his mentor. His voice was tight with stress as he paced back and forth. "I don't know, David. Something feels off about this whole pitch, but I can't put my finger on it. We've checked everything twice, run the numbers a dozen times, but I have this nagging feeling we're missing something huge." Maya paused in her cleaning, her heart racing. She knew exactly what they were missing, but how could she possibly speak up? In her world, janitors didn't give business advice to executives. They stayed quiet, did their job, and went home. But as she listened to James's worried voice, something stirred inside her. This wasn't just about a business deal anymore. It was about people's jobs, their families, their futures. If Pinnacle lost this contract, there would be layoffs. Good people would lose their livelihoods, just like she had years ago when her previous company downsized. That night, Maya went home and did something she hadn't done in years. She pulled out her old business textbooks, dusty and forgotten in a box in her closet. She spent hours researching Meridian Industries, studying their expansion history, analyzing their previous partnerships. By morning, she had a clear picture of what Pinnacle's presentation was missing, and it was massive. The next evening, as Maya arrived for her shift, the entire office was buzzing with nervous energy. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. the following morning, and everyone knew how much was riding on it. Maya went about her usual routine, but her mind was racing. She had information that could make the difference between success and failure, but she had no idea how to share it without overstepping every boundary that existed between her world and theirs. As she cleaned the conference room where tomorrow's presentation would take place, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find a way to help, even if it meant risking her job. Because sometimes doing the right thing matters more than staying safe. Little did she know that in less than 12 hours, she'd be standing in that very same conference room, facing down a room full of executives who saw her as nothing more than just the janitor, while holding the key to their $10 million salvation in her hands. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything everyone thought they knew about worth, wisdom, and who deserves to have their voice heard in the corridors of power. The morning of the presentation arrived like a storm cloud over Pinnacle Solutions. Maya had barely slept, her mind churning with everything she'd discovered about Meridian Industries. She knew she had to find a way to share what she'd learned, but every scenario she imagined ended with her being escorted out of the building by security. At 9:30 a.m., Maya was supposed to be at home, sleeping after her night shift. Instead, she found herself standing across the street from Pinnacle's gleaming office tower, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She'd never done anything like this before, never stepped so far outside the invisible lines that separated her world from theirs. But she couldn't shake James's worried voice from the night before, or the image of all those hardworking people who would lose their jobs if this deal fell through. Sometimes, Maya thought, you have to be brave even when you're terrified. She took a deep breath and walked into the building. The lobby was buzzing with activity. Maya recognized several Meridian executives from the photos she'd studied online, stern-faced men and women in expensive suits, the kind of people who made million-dollar decisions before breakfast. They were being escorted to the elevators by Pinnacle's senior partners, everyone smiling those tight, professional smiles that barely concealed the massive pressure everyone was feeling. Maya slipped into the service elevator, her cleaning uniform helping her blend into the background once again. On the 15th floor, she could hear voices coming from the main conference room, James and his team doing their final preparations, their voices tight with nervous energy. Okay, everyone, we've been over this presentation 100 times. We know Meridian's expansion goals, we understand their market position, and we've got solid projections for their international growth. This is our moment. Maya's stomach twisted. They were so confident, so prepared, and so completely wrong about what Meridian actually needed. Through her research, she discovered that Meridian's previous international expansion attempts had failed not because of market analysis or financial projections, but because of cultural integration issues that no one had addressed. Their European venture 3 years ago had collapsed because they'd ignored local business customs. Their Asian expansion had stalled because they'd underestimated the importance of relationship building in those markets. But Pinnacle's presentation focused entirely on numbers and market penetration strategies. They were solving the wrong problem. At exactly 10 a.m., the Meridian executives filed into the conference room.
Maya watched from the hallway as handshakes were exchanged and everyone took their seats. The presentation began, and Maya could hear James's confident voice explaining Pinnacle's approach to international market expansion. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed to go smoothly. James was in his element, clicking through slides filled with charts and graphs, explaining market opportunities and revenue projections. His team jumped in at the right moments, adding supporting details and answering preliminary questions. But Maya could see the subtle signs that the Pinnacle team was missing. The way Meridian CEO, Robert Chen, kept glancing at his watch. How their head of international operations, Sarah Martinez, was taking fewer and fewer notes as the presentation went on. The polite but increasingly distant expressions on their faces. They were losing them, and they didn't even know it. Then came the moment Maya had been dreading. James clicked to a slide about Meridian's previous expansion attempts, and she heard him say, "We understand that your company has had some challenges with international growth in the past, but we believe those were simply due to insufficient market research and conservative financial planning." Maya actually winced. That was exactly the wrong thing to say to executives who had lost millions on failed expansions. She watched through the glass as Robert Chen's expression hardened, and Sarah Martinez actually sat back in her chair, her arms crossed. "Actually," Robert Chen interrupted, his voice cool, "our previous challenges weren't about market research or financial planning. We had excellent data and adequate funding. The issues were more complex than that." James paused, clearly caught off guard. "Of course, sir. Could you elaborate on what specific challenges you faced?" There was a long, uncomfortable silence. Maya could practically feel the tension radiating from the conference room. This was the moment when everything started to fall apart, and she was the only person in the building who knew how to fix it. Sarah Martinez leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, with all due respect, if your team had done thorough research on our company's history, you would know that our European expansion failed because we completely misunderstood the business culture in Germany and France. Our Asian venture stalled because we approached relationship building like a typical American corporation, all business, no personal connection. These weren't financial miscalculations. They were cultural blind spots that cost us millions."
Maya watched James's face go pale. His carefully prepared presentation had just been revealed as fundamentally flawed, and he had no backup plan. The other Pinnacle team members were exchanging panicked glances, clearly realizing that months of work were about to go down the drain. We, James stammered, shuffling through his notes desperately. "We certainly understand the importance of cultural considerations." "Do you?" Robert Chen's voice was sharp now. "Because your entire presentation is focused on market penetration and financial projections. You haven't mentioned cultural integration once. You haven't addressed relationship-building strategies. You haven't even acknowledged that our previous failures were learning experiences that shaped our current approach." The silence that followed was devastating. Maya could see James's career flashing before his eyes, along with the jobs of everyone on his team. The $10 million deal was slipping away, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Except there was. Maya looked down at her cleaning uniform, thought about her 2 teenagers at home who depended on her, considered all the reasons why she should just walk away and pretend this wasn't happening. Then she thought about James's worried voice the night before, about all the good people who would lose their jobs if this deal fell through, about the years she'd spent being invisible while watching other people's dreams come true. She thought about the business degree she'd never finished, the knowledge she'd never been allowed to use, the voice she'd never been permitted to have in rooms like this one. And Maya Johnson made the most terrifying and courageous decision of her life.
She knocked on the conference room door. Every head in the room turned toward her as she stepped inside, her cleaning cart beside her. The looks on their faces ranged from confusion to annoyance to outright shock. Here was this woman in a janitor's uniform interrupting the most important business meeting of the year. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't be in here during this meeting," James said, his voice strained with embarrassment and stress. But Maya didn't back down. She looked directly at Robert Chen and Sarah Martinez, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "Mr. Chen, Miss Martinez, I know I'm just the janitor here, but I couldn't help overhearing your concerns about cultural integration and relationship building, and I think I might have some information that could help." The silence that followed was so complete, Maya could hear the air conditioning humming in the walls. 12 of the most powerful business executives in the city were staring at her like she just announced she was from Mars. But Maya had come too far to turn back now. She was about to do something that would either save the day or end her career, and possibly both. The tension in that conference room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Maya stood there, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the handle of her cleaning cart, facing down 12 executives who looked like they couldn't decide whether to laugh or call security. James Morrison's face had gone from pale to bright red. "Maya, this really isn't appropriate. Perhaps you could come back later to clean." But Robert Chen held up a hand, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. There was something in his expression, curiosity, maybe even respect, that gave her the courage to continue. "Actually," he said slowly, "I'd like to hear what she has to say. In my experience, the people who really understand how a company works are often the ones everyone else overlooks." Sarah Martinez nodded, leaning forward in her chair. "Go ahead. What information do you have?" Maya took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would either validate years of hidden knowledge or confirm everyone's assumption that she was just a janitor who didn't know her place. 3 years ago, Maya began, her voice growing stronger with each word, your German expansion failed because your team tried to implement American-style quarterly review meetings. But in German business culture, that approach came across as micromanagement and showed a lack of trust in your local partners. Your Frankfurt office manager, Klaus Weber, actually quit because he felt disrespected by the constant check-ins. The room went dead silent. Robert Chen's eyebrows shot up, and Sarah Martinez actually dropped her pen. Maya continued, your Asian expansion stalled because your negotiation team focused on closing deals quickly instead of building long-term relationships. In markets like Japan and South Korea, business partnerships are built on trust and personal connections that can take months or even years to develop. Your competitors understood this. They spent time getting to know their partners' families, participating in cultural events, showing genuine interest in local customs. Meanwhile, your team was pushing for signed contracts after 3 meetings. James was staring at Maya like he'd never seen her before. How could you possibly know all this?
Maya's heart was racing, but she pressed on. Because I've been listening, Mr. Morrison. For months, I've been cleaning around your workspace while you and your team prepared for this presentation. I've seen the research, heard the phone calls, watched the late-night strategy sessions. And I've also been doing my own research because I could see that something was missing from your approach. She turned back to the Meridian executives. Your company doesn't need another consulting firm that's going to give you market analysis and financial projections. You already have excellent data and adequate funding. You said so yourself. What you need is a partner who understands that successful international expansion is about building bridges between cultures, not just penetrating markets. Robert Chen leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. And you think Pinnacle Solutions can be that partner? I think they can be, Maya said, but only if they're willing to completely change their approach to your account. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours.
Maya could see James and his team exchanging bewildered glances, clearly trying to process what was happening. The woman they'd barely noticed for months was now conducting their business meeting. Finally, Sarah Martinez spoke. "What would you recommend?" Maya felt a surge of confidence she hadn't experienced in years. This was what she'd been trained for, what she dreamed of doing before life forced her onto a different path. First, Pinnacle needs to assign cultural liaison specialists to work alongside their business analysts. These should be people who have lived and worked in your target markets, who understand not just the economics, but the social dynamics of doing business in those regions. She moved closer to the conference table, her cleaning cart forgotten. Second, instead of focusing on quick market penetration, the strategy should emphasize relationship-building phases. Plan for 6-month relationship development periods before any serious negotiations begin. Your potential partners need to see that you're committed to understanding their way of doing business. Robert Chen was nodding slowly. Go on. Third, create cultural integration teams that include local employees from your target markets. Don't just hire American executives and send them overseas. Build partnerships with local business leaders who can guide your expansion from the inside. Make them stakeholders in your success, not just employees following orders from headquarters. Maya paused, looking around the room. Every single person was hanging on her words now, including James, who looked like he was seeing her for the first time. Finally, Maya continued, and acknowledge your previous failures as learning experiences, not mistakes to be forgotten. Your competitors will try to use those failures against you, but if you own them and show how they've shaped your new approach, they become strengths instead of weaknesses.
The room erupted in murmurs as the Meridian executives began talking among themselves in low, excited voices. Maya caught fragments of their conversation. Exactly what we've been looking for. Finally, someone who gets it. This changes everything. James Morrison stood up slowly, his face a mixture of amazement and something that looked like shame. Maya, I had no idea you had this kind of background. How did you learn all this? I was 3 credits away from finishing my business degree when life got complicated, Maya said simply. I never stopped learning, Mr. Morrison. I just stopped having opportunities to use what I learned. Robert Chen cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention back to him. Ms. Johnson, Maya Johnson. Ms. Johnson, what you've outlined is exactly the kind of approach we've been hoping to find. The question is, can Pinnacle Solutions actually deliver on this strategy? All eyes turned to James, who looked like a man who'd just been thrown a lifeline he never expected. Yes, absolutely. We can restructure our entire approach around cultural integration and relationship building. We have the resources and the expertise to implement everything Maya has suggested. With Maya as part of the team? Sarah Martinez asked pointedly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. Was this really happening? Was she about to be offered a chance to use her knowledge, her skills, her voice in a way she'd only dreamed about? James looked at Maya, then at the Meridian executives, then back to Maya. She could see the wheels turning in his head, the recognition that this woman had just saved not only the deal, but possibly the entire company. Yes, he said firmly, absolutely with Maya as part of the team. In fact, I think she should be our lead cultural integration specialist for this account. Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. After 15 years of being invisible, of being overlooked and underestimated, someone was finally seeing her for who she really was. But Robert Chen wasn't finished. Ms. Johnson, I have one more question for you. Why did you speak up today? You could have just done your job and gone home. Why risk everything to help a company that's barely acknowledged your existence? Maya thought about her answer for a moment, then spoke from her heart. Because good people were about to lose their jobs through no fault of their own. Because I've been where you are, watching something important slip away and feeling powerless to stop it. And because I realized that staying silent wasn't protecting me anymore, it was just making me complicit in my own invisibility. She looked around the room at all those powerful faces, no longer intimidated by their suits or their titles. I spent years believing that my voice didn't matter in rooms like this. But today, I learned that sometimes the most important voice is the one that comes from the most unexpected place. The transformation in that conference room was electric. What had started as a failing presentation had become something entirely different. A moment of recognition, of possibility, of change that none of them would ever forget. But Maya's journey was just beginning. The real test would come in the days and weeks ahead as she navigated her new role and proved that her insights could translate into real results. The $10 million deal was saved, but now she had to help deliver on the promises she'd made. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Maya knew that this moment would ripple outward in ways she couldn't even imagine yet. 6 months later, Maya Johnson stood in that same conference room, but everything had changed. The cleaning cart was gone, replaced by a mahogany desk where she now worked as Pinnacle Solutions Director of Cultural Integration. The woman who had once been invisible was now leading the most successful international expansion project in the company's history. The Meridian deal hadn't just been saved, it had exceeded every expectation. Maya's cultural integration approach had worked like magic. Instead of the usual 6-month timeline that most consulting firms promised, Pinnacle had successfully established Meridian's presence in 3 new international markets within 4 months. The German partnership that had failed so spectacularly 3 years ago was now thriving under Maya's relationship-first strategy. The Asian expansion that had stalled was moving forward with unprecedented local support. But the real transformation wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the people. James Morrison knocked on Maya's office door, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the kind of genuine smile that had replaced his old stressed-out expression. "Got a minute? I wanted to go over the quarterly results before we present them to the board." Maya looked up from her computer, where she'd been reviewing cultural assessment reports from Meridian's new Tokyo office. "Of course. How are we looking?" James set down her coffee and pulled up a chair. "Maya, these numbers are incredible. Meridian's international revenue is up 43% from last quarter. Their employee satisfaction scores in the new markets are the highest in company history. And get this, 3 of their competitors have reached out asking if we can help them with similar expansions." Maya shook her head in amazement. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it," James said. "You didn't just save one deal, Maya. You revolutionized how this entire industry thinks about international business development. Harvard Business School wants to do a case study on your approach. The Wall Street Journal is sending a reporter next week to interview you about cultural integration strategies." But for Maya, the most meaningful changes weren't the ones making headlines. They were the smaller, more personal transformations happening every day. Like the way the security guards now greeted her by name when she walked through the lobby each morning. Like how the other executives actually listened when she spoke in meetings instead of looking through her like she wasn't there. Like the young woman from the mailroom who had started taking night classes toward her business degree after hearing Maya's story. Most importantly, Maya's own children had watched their mother transform from someone who felt powerless to someone who was changing lives. Her daughter Keisha, now 17, had started talking about studying international business in college. Her son Marcus, 15, had begun paying attention to his social studies classes, fascinated by his mother's stories about different cultures and business practices around the world. "You know what the best part is?" Maya told James as they reviewed the quarterly presentation. "It's not just that we're making money or winning awards. It's that we're proving something important, that success comes from understanding people, not just manipulating markets." James nodded. "The Meridian executives said something similar in their feedback survey. Robert Shen wrote that working with you taught him that the most valuable business insights often come from the most unexpected sources." Maya smiled, remembering that terrifying moment 6 months ago when she'd knocked on the conference room door. I keep thinking about all the other people out there who have knowledge and insights that could change everything, but they're stuck in jobs where nobody listens to them. How many brilliant ideas are we missing because we only pay attention to people with the right titles or the right degrees? That's actually something I wanted to talk to you about, James said, his expression growing serious. The senior partners have been discussing your success, and they want to expand your role. They're talking about creating an entire department focused on identifying overlooked talent within companies, not just cultural integration, but finding people whose potential has been ignored because of their position or background. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. Are you serious? Dead serious. They want you to head up a new division called Inclusive Intelligence. The idea is to help companies recognize and develop talent that's been hiding in plain sight. Think about it. How many other Mayas are out there, cleaning offices or working in mailrooms or answering phones, with knowledge that could transform entire industries? The possibilities were staggering. Maya thought about all the conversations she'd overheard over the years, all the insights she developed while being treated as part of the furniture. How many other people were in similar situations right now, watching and learning and understanding, but never being asked for their opinions? James, Maya said slowly, what if we're not just talking about individual success stories? What if we're talking about changing how business works entirely? Over the following weeks, Maya threw herself into developing the Inclusive Intelligence program. She created assessment tools for identifying hidden talent, developed training programs for managers who had never learned to look beyond traditional credentials, and established mentorship networks that connected overlooked employees with senior executives. The pilot program launched with 5 companies, and the results were immediate and dramatic. A receptionist at a tech startup identified a major security vulnerability that the IT department had missed. A warehouse worker at a manufacturing company suggested a process improvement that saved the company $2 million annually. A cafeteria worker at a hospital developed a patient communication system that improved satisfaction scores by 30%. But Maya's proudest moment came when she received a letter from a young man named David who worked the night shift at a financial services company. He'd heard about Maya's story and had worked up the courage to share his observations about market trends with his supervisor. His insights had led to a new investment strategy that was now generating significant returns for the company's clients. "You showed me that my voice matters," David wrote. "That being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. Thank you for proving that anyone can make a difference if they're brave enough to speak up." As Maya read that letter, she realized that her journey had come full circle. She'd started as someone who felt invisible and powerless, but she'd discovered that her greatest strength had always been her ability to see what others missed. Now she was helping other people find their own hidden strengths and use them to create positive change. The $10 million deal that had started everything was just the beginning. Maya had sparked a movement that was spreading far beyond Pinnacle Solutions, far beyond the consulting industry, far beyond anything she could have imagined when she knocked on that conference room door. Standing in her office, looking out at the city where thousands of people were going to work each day in jobs that didn't recognize their full potential, Maya felt a deep sense of purpose. She thought about her teenage self, full of dreams and ambitions that had been derailed by circumstances beyond her control. She thought about all the years she'd spent believing that her dreams were over, that her chance had passed. But Maya had learned something powerful. It's never too late to find your voice, and it's never too late to use that voice to lift others up. Sometimes the most important moment of your life comes disguised as an ordinary Tuesday morning when you have to choose between staying safe and speaking up.
The woman who had once been just the janitor was now changing how the business world thought about talent, potential, and worth. And she was just getting started. Because Maya Johnson had discovered that the most revolutionary act in any workplace isn't climbing the corporate ladder. It's helping other people realize they deserve to climb it too. Her story reminds us that brilliance doesn't always come with the right credentials. Wisdom doesn't always wear expensive suits. And the person who can save your company might be the one you've been overlooking every single day. So the next time you see someone whose job seems less important than yours, remember Maya's story. Listen to what they have to say. Ask for their perspective. You might just discover that the most valuable insights in your organization are coming from the most unexpected places. And if you're someone who feels invisible, overlooked, or undervalued in your own workplace, remember this: your voice matters. Your knowledge has value, and your perspective could be exactly what someone needs to hear. Don't wait for permission to share your insights. Don't assume that your position disqualifies your opinions. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one nobody expects to speak up. Sometimes the person who saves the day is the one everyone thought was just doing their job. Be brave enough to knock on that conference room door. Your moment might be waiting on the other side. If Maya's story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And in the comments below, tell us about a time when someone unexpected made a huge difference in your life, or when you were that unexpected person who stepped up when it mattered most. Your story could inspire someone else to find their voice and change their world. Remember, you're never just anything. You're exactly who you're supposed to be, with exactly the knowledge and perspective the world needs to hear.